Let's take a look at the difference between slurs, ties, and hooked bowing. So these are all different kinds of bowing that we're going to examine, the way they look, and we're also going to examine what makes them different. So first up, let's look at the tie. If you notice, it's the same note, so on the same space or line, and it has that little rainbow or smiley face, however you want to think about it. But it's important to know that the tie is the same note. And because it's got this little arc here, that shows us that we're playing this in the same bow. So if these are both quarter notes, each one's going to get one beat. We're going to play this note, but we're going to hold it out for one beat plus another beat, which will be 2 total beats. Okay, so it's important to know that ties are the same note. Okay, same note. And it's also important to know that they're in the same bow direction. So again, same note, same bow direction. They have to be the same note. Okay, now let's take a look at slurs. Slurs are different notes. Notice that it starts on one line and goes to another. If the slur was on the same note or the same line or space, it would be a tie. But because it's on a different line or space, it's a slur. So just like my tie, it's the same bow direction, but it's a different note in the same bow direction. Now, let's talk about how many slurs or ties we can have, how many notes we can have in each. So let's look at some examples of slurs. If you notice, we have lots of different notes in these slurs. 4 or 2. But all we need to know about slurs is that it has to be 2 or more notes. So 2 or more notes in the same bow direction. And we can even add 2 or more different notes in the same bow direction. So again, the highlights, different notes, same bow direction. If we wanted to have a formal definition, we could say they are 2 or more different notes in the same bow direction. So now let's do the same thing for ties. We have our general idea of what ties might be, but let's take a look at some examples and give a formal definition. Alright, so here are some ties. If you notice, we have quite a few right here, and they're all in one measure. They're all the same note, and that little rainbow going from each one tells you that all of those are in the same bow. So we would have 1 beat, 2 beats, 3 beats, 4 beats in the same bow. So here's going to be 4 beats in one bow. Notice that that's exact same as just writing that. But ties are special because they can go over the bar line. If you notice right here, here's our bar line that separates measures, and we can go over the bar line with a tie. So this would have 2 beats, but it would start on beat 4 and continue through beat 1 on the next measure. So we can go beyond the bar line, and then we also have above and below the staff. So it could be above the staff, below the staff. And then also they can extend beyond multiple measures. Okay, now this is all true for slurs as well, but the special part about ties is that they are the same note. Okay, and you can use ties to use different kinds of notes as well. You can have a quarter note with a half note. It doesn't matter what kind of note it is, it can be tied or slurred. Okay, so if we were going to make a formal definition, we could say 2 or more of the same note in the same bow direction. Okay, and that gives us a pretty broad definition to where we could say they could go across the bar line, they could be over the staff and under the staff. But the important thing to know about is that they're in the same direction, and it's 2 or more, and it's the same note for ties and different notes for slurs. Now we're going to take a look at hooks. So hooked bowing is really similar to both slurs and ties, where ties have to be the same note and slurs have to be different notes. Hooks can be either. But here's the important part. This dot tells you that your bow has to stop in between each note. So you have to give a little bit of space in between each note. So we would play this and have 4 separate sounds like D, 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 D. But you can see from the bow symbols up here, the bowing symbols, that that would be down, 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 down. We're playing all of those on a down bow. We're just stopping in between each one. And we can do the same thing for an up bow. Up, 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 up. And notice that these are both the same notes, but they can also be different. So, hooks can be either the same notes or different notes. The important part is that they have to be in the same bow direction and stopping in between notes. And the way I help my kids remember is Captain Hook is the bad guy for Peter Pan. And whenever he catches Peter Pan, he has this fatal flaw where, and without fail, every time he catches Peter Pan, he stops and he tells him his evil plan before he actually goes through with it. So, what you can always remember is that hooks stop. Captain Hook stops and tells his evil plan before he actually does it, so he always gets his plan foiled. Okay, now just to clarify and kind of review here, we have ties, same note, same bow direction, 2 or more of the same note in the same bow direction. Slurs, different note, same bow direction, 2 or more different notes in the same bow direction, and hooks, which can be either the same notes or different notes in the same bow direction, but stopping in between notes. So just in case you're a little confused about slurs and ties, here's a picture of them right up against each other so you can really see, there we go. You can really see ties, same note, slurs, different note. Now we could make both of these hooks simply by adding those dots above here. Remember, hooks can be the same note or the different note, but they need to have those dots. So a really great way for you to remember is that those can have, they have dots. So dots show you that you are stopping in between notes. And we can remember Captain Hook stops to tell his evil plan. Okay? So just to review one last time. Ties, same note, same bow direction. Slurs, different note, same bow direction. And hooks can be either the same or different, but we are stopping between notes in the same bow direction.